So we often talk a lot about metrics in terms of status, but I want to talk about metrics to reduce risk and increase value. That's the point today. So keep that in mind as I walk through these slides. A lot of times I see all kinds of interesting things about project status, or what people report for status. And what I too often see is lagging or even incorrect indicators. So if you are still supposed to report anything that's a percent complete, anything about velocity, anything you average, all of those are wrong. So first of all, for percent complete, I suspect that all of you are in software or have some kind of a software or firmware component to your products. And you know as well as I do, percent complete is total nonsense, malarkey, not useful, right? Because as soon as you change something, are you then some kind of percent complete? Are you something else? We don't know. We don't know until we can get that piece of that feature, that piece of functionality into the user's hands. So percent complete or percent anything is not very useful at all. I would call it an incorrect indicator. I'm going to talk about velocity more, but let me just talk about averaging for a second. The more you try and average anything, the less accurate it is. I am 5 feet tall on a very, very good day. If who's a really tall guy that you might know? So LeBron James, right? The great NBA All-Star. He's what, 6 something or 7 feet tall? So if you average us, we're both 6 feet tall. But I'm not 6 feet tall. And our problems getting onto or off of an airplane, right? Sitting in an airplane, we have totally different problems. My feet don't reach the floor because I'm not average. And his feet, his knees are stuck even in first class against the seat in front of him. So averaging anything is not useful at all, right? And that's just a personal example, never mind a professional example for a status report. So the problem with lagging indicators is that they create watermelon status, right? Watermelon is, it's green on the outside and then on the inside it's red. So, and I often say that teams know something is wrong. They know that their status is not green. They know that things are not going well, but they don't know how to explain the problems that they see. And worse, when things go from green to red, it's like it's overnight, right? You start off, it's green, it's green, it's green, it's green, and then some Tuesday afternoon, it's red, and it's not going to get back to green at all. So management tends to blame people for what they have already done, which is not very helpful. So we have a mess at best and a disaster at worst. So we need to have more predictive indicators that also talk about value and risk rather than lagging indicators. So I'm going to talk about 3 big ideas, which are cycle time, demos, and team satisfaction. And if you've ever seen me present before, you know I have more ideas because I'm just impossible. But I want you to think about the 3 big ideas while you think about what makes sense for your project. So the first is cycle time. And I am of the age of, this is not blonde, this is white, right? My hair is white. So I am an old professional. And what we used to call wall time is what people now call cycle time. How long does it really take for something to start and finish? And the problem with velocity, if any of you are using velocity is all about ideal time. And I don't know anybody who has ideal time in their project. So I'm just going to say this now. Friends, do not let friends use points or velocity. You can count, you can use cycle time. I should say count stories or cycle time, but no, don't use velocity. And here's why. Managers think velocity is all about capacity. They think that all the features are well ordered, just like these soap bottles over here. They think that all the features are roughly the same size. They think that you, as part of the teams, can easily estimate what every single feature is. And worse, managers, too many managers, think velocity is acceleration. All of those are wrong. Velocity is a capacity at a moment in time, right? So at a moment in time, that's what velocity is. It's not acceleration. So I am on vacation right now in a very sunny place, but I live in the Boston area, and we have snow and ice and rain and all kinds of stuff. I take a normal walk every single day. Yeah, I'm boring. I take the same walk. It's totally fine. That's my problem, not yours. In nice normal weather, my normal capacity is 4 miles an hour. I walk briskly because I really want to get my heart going and maybe lose a little weight, right? All that good stuff. So that's my 1 hour daily walk, right? Normally 4 miles an hour. In rain, my pace is often 3 miles an hour because the rain gets in my way. I'm cold. I hope I have the right jacket on. It's all, and I need to really worry about where I put my feet because rain can sometimes be slippery. And ice and snow, my pace ranges from 0 to 2 miles an hour. 0 because I don't go for the walk. And 2 miles an hour because I'm really careful about where I'm putting my feet. This is the same duration, the same problem every single day, and a totally different capacity, totally different finishing. So, and this is just a daily walk. This is not the kinds of problems we solve in our teams. So this is why velocity does not work. But cycle time actually tells you what you need to know. So this is a value stream map with the work time above this black line and the wait time below the black line. Whoops, sorry. And this means that we can see who works on which pieces of the item as we proceed. Now, if you have bottlenecks or delays, you can actually see what all those bottlenecks and delays are. So, for example, this wait duration until another person can start, that's a bottleneck, or it's at least a delay, if not a bottleneck. So, right, and now if person one works on this and they have a certain duration, then and they can hand off right away to person two. That's terrific. That means person two will have a certain duration. Person three will have, won't be able to start until they are ready. And then person four, right? So all the work time gets added up above the line. That's when we know that the item is done. And then all the wait time is below the line. That's how you calculate cycle time. But what's really interesting is that cycle time can help you forecast what might be next for you. So, for example, you can create this time series of dates and durations. This is from a real team that was doing fairly well. They had a couple of kind of wacko cycle times over here with 15 days. But if you understand the 50% line, which is about over here, you can say that's our 5 to 6 days of cycle time is about 50%. And notice how we appear to be doing much, much better here, except what happened at the end of February last year? Why do we have such a big cycle time over here? That's a question that we can answer. And because we can answer it, that makes all the difference in the world. So if we were only to take the 50% mark, we might say, yeah, we can pretty much get everything done. 50% is 5 or 6 days. Fine. What happens at the beginning of March, the end of April? We need to understand that so we know if our recent history is more predictive than our relatively past history, right? What is more predictive? And that will help you understand what you might need to do for forecasting. But if you only measure velocity or count stories, first of all, don't measure velocity. If you count stories, that's useful. But cycle time is even better for prediction, for forecasting, because this is reality. Now, the next big idea is to demo often. I find that the more often you demo your completed work, the less often you need to discuss or report status. Isn't that interesting, right? Demos also can show how the feature set grows, whether or not that's intentional. So in the chat, I want you to answer these questions if you are, and you might be talking for a friend, right? Do not worry, I'm not going to call you out by name. I would like you to answer in the chat how often you demo or your friend demos now. Do you demo daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or whenever I have to because the product is almost ever ready? And if you want to, put the numbers in the chat. That's totally fine. So let's see what you put into the chat. I see a 5 already. Oh, that's disappointing. Yeah. Anybody else? I see that there are more people. Well, so if you are at a 5, and the reason I put this in is because if you're working on feature branches, if you're working on very long and large features, it's really, really hard to create a demo because the product is never ready. Oh, somebody else says it really varies depending on the project. So maybe take the project you're on now. Oh, okay. Let me ask you this question. And if you're willing, do this for everybody. How many projects are you working on concurrently? Just put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many projects you're working on concurrently. Yeah, I see 3s and 5s. Yeah. One massive program. One massive program is actually good. I'm hoping that you are able to demo on a regular basis. So there was a comment here about PI demos every quarter as IT, but depending on the project, we might have demos after each sprint for Scrum roles. So I find that even a demo after each sprint is not sufficient to manage the demand for status. The more you can manage the demand for status with demos, the more likely you are to not have to report on any other status. Now, those of you who are trying to use SAFe, I will just say this now, SAFe is not agile. It's an excellent form of RUP or a very friendly form of waterfall or phase gate. It's not agile. So it does not answer it does not get the customer involved nearly enough. There are a lot of problems with SAFe. So instead of going there, let's talk about my next poll, because I think that this might help us get to some other answers. Where do you or your friend actually demo? Do you demo from somebody's machine, from a staging server, from the production server, or some other place? And if you are willing to please explain where you demo from, because the demoing and the number of demos and where you demo from can really affect how easily it is to explain your status, especially those of you who are doing very large programs or projects. So I see one from a stage environment. That's good. From someone's machine. Oh, interesting. A special machine setup specifically for demos and training. That's a really interesting idea, Natalie. I really like that idea, because that way you have to install the newest version on that machine. And that way you at least know in the stalls. Yeah, nice. Very nice. A demo instance, that's also very nice. So if you look at, I'm going to go back for just a second. If you look at how often you demo, I did not see any ones or twos. I saw some threes and some fives. And I also saw there are some various answers here. But think about this. If you are supposed to share status about your project, and the Agile Manifesto for Software Development says the best, what does it say? The best metric, whatever that piece in the manifesto says, that running software is the best way to tell what the status is. I totally mangled that, but I think you all know what I'm talking about. The more we can see running tested software, the easier it is to explain our status, which means this has several implications, especially if you are doing large programs or large projects. That means you need to have smaller features so you can integrate them more often, so you can show them and demo them more often, right? The larger the program, the smaller the features. I realize almost nobody does this, but this is how we make it possible for everybody to understand what we're doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. If anybody else is working on a large program or a large project, can you just say +1 in the chat, and then I can decide whether or not to add anything from my Agile and Lean program management book. So just, oh, I see. Yeah, there were more. Oh, okay. So I might have to do some more for that. Okay. All right. So demos are really your friend. And if you are not able to demo on a regular basis from at least a staging server or that training machine, right? Something outside of product development, what would you have to do to get to that place? That's really a question. Now, the interesting thing about why demos matter is because demos are internal deliveries. Demos help everybody who are working on the project understand we have finished this. We are done with this. We don't have to go back. We might go back to add more features on this feature set. We might change what we have to do in terms of going back, because our customers can see it and use it. Therefore, we need to do something a little bit different to it. But that's all good, right? I really like to think about how let me rewind that thought. Sometimes our managers don't like it when our customers say, but I want something different now. Now that I've seen this, I want something different. And Michael says, yes, demos are actually great to support change management. Exactly. Because when our customers see it and use it and they say, you gave me what I asked for, but it's not what I wanted, that's exactly what we need so that our management realizes we're actually doing the right thing, but our customers have changed their mind. Customers always change their minds. That's totally fine. We need to manage those changes. So the reason the more demos we have, the more trust we build with ourselves, with our management, with our customers, with our internal partners, all those people. And that means we have fewer requests for estimation and prediction. So the more we demo, the easier we make it on ourselves. We have many, many fewer requests for status. There. Now, the interesting thing is that demos can expose other data. So I really like this chart. This is just a feature growth chart where the green line is the total number of features. This is actually for a program. And all I did was count them. I don't try and account for complexity. I don't try and account for anything else. I just count the number of features. This red burn-up line is the number of features that the team or teams completed, and the blue burn down line is the number of features we have remaining. So it's a standard burn up, complete, and burn down chart. When I show this to managers, especially on a very large project or a program, they say, I can't believe it. How can things change so much? This is the whole point of doing the demos that expose the need for change. So while I often use this feature complete chart, you might not have to if you use demos all the time. But what a lot of managers don't understand is that I expect the features to change. I expect ups and downs. Well, I don't expect too many downs, but I expect a lot of ups, because as we finish one thing, our customers say, oh, I also need this. This is what happens. We cannot predict everything we need to know in advance. So let's stop trying to predict that now. Instead, let's show our managers what the demos show, where we are, and how many features we still have. Now, this is where I'm a little bit sneaky. Notice I said I counted features. I don't count epics or themes. That's just, first of all, I stopped using the terms epics or themes many years ago when one of my clients, I was doing a project management workshop, and one of my clients had bought another company. They used a different tool. So one company used story, epic, and theme. One company used story, theme, and epic. How were they going to rationalize epic and theme? They could not rationalize it. So instead I said, call them all feature sets and count the number of features in the feature set. And you will have some large features, you will have some small features. If you can right size your features, you will have all features of roughly the same size, which helps you predict via your cycle time. However, even if you can't do right sizing, you can count the number of features in the feature set. When you stop using the words epic and theme, you change how people think about the features in the feature set. When you hide the information behind epic and theme, people have no idea how many stories are in the feature set. No idea at all. So often you will get this really big jump in the number of features because you stopped using words like epic and theme, and you start using words like feature set, and you start to count the number of features. So an epic might have 10 stories or 20 stories. Don't hide that number behind the terms epic and theme. Just count everything. And that way your managers can actually see how much you're working. I'm going to take a sip of water. I know. How many other people get all excited about data? I do. So now here's another a piece of data that you might want to keep in the team and show outside the team. What's done and not yet released. When I find when some of my clients say I can't do any kind of a demo because we have not yet released something, I often find that there's another team responsible for releasing. So this team or all the teams in this program are fine for themselves, but there's a deployment team that is somehow more of a phase gate. So if you start to expose this data, right, that you say this is waiting for release, all these stories, when was each of these things done? Why are they not released? And if all these cards say waiting for deployment, waiting for deployment, waiting for deployment, waiting for deployment, right? This exposes the problem in the organization. This is not the deployment team's fault. It's the fault that there actually is a deployment team, right? If you integrated the deployment team into the program, into the team, into the project, you would not have to wait for the deployment team. But because the deployment team is somehow outside the project or the program, that means you have to wait for them. When is the anticipated release? And then what was released since the last meeting? I often find a lot of managers who are well-meaning, but do not understand how software really works. They want some kind of change management. They want somebody to sign off on what the team or teams have done. How can anybody know what the team or teams have done except for the teams, right? So instead of, I'm telling this to myself, instead of yelling at your management, Johanna, tell them, here's a chart about what's done and not released. Here's how you can see what we are waiting for when you want a deployment team and permission for us to release, even just to a staging server, even just to that training server, right? This is all creating a longer cycle time because we cannot really finish our work and give it to the customers. Now, I'm not talking about when you can actually release to customers, because you might only release internally, especially if you have a large program or project. But if you cannot even release internally, then this is really a problem. So let me talk about the product backlog burnup chart, which I find really helpful, especially for very large projects and programs. So let me talk about the axes first. The x-axis is the iteration or the interim date, right? If you use iterations for Scrum, that's fine. This is every 2 weeks, I hope. And then the number of cumulative features are on the y-axis. This is all feature sets. Feature set 1, feature set 2, feature set 3. So if you look at feature set 1 is, maybe a quarter done after the first iteration. Feature set 2 is maybe 10% done after the first iteration. Nothing on feature set 3 for all the iterations. Now, what's interesting here is feature set 1, we got more done in the second iteration, but feature set 2 grew. So our relative finishing is less. Does that make sense? Feature set 2 grew. Our relative completion, since we did not complete anymore, is less. Feature set 3 has not grown, so we have more done, and we made more progress on feature set 2. Feature set 1 and this fourth iteration is getting there. Feature set 2, we've made some progress. Now, on the last iteration on this chart, feature set 1 looks like it's almost done. Always very, very challenging words. But look how much feature set 2 has grown. Even if we finish something in feature set 2, it does not look like it's grown, right? Because we have so much more to do. So this, if you have this plus the feature set growth chart, right? The feature growth, that the green line that went up and down, and the burn down of, well, the red line of what we completed and the blue burn down, that shows how many, which growth and finishing occurred in which feature set in this chart. I just count these, right? This makes it possible for me to do this with an Excel file, because I don't want to do anything really hard. If I'm a project or a program manager, how much time do I really have to spend on this? I don't want to spend that much time on it. So I find that the product backlog burnup. So I started this section with demos. The data behind the demos, especially if you're not demoing frequently, is the feature set, right? How have the features grown? How much have we finished? And what do we still have remaining? The product backlog burnup chart. These are all helpful tools to explain why we cannot demo more often. Now, number 3, this third big idea, is team satisfaction. So I like to think about who I need to consider when I make decisions. So there are stakeholders who might be various partners across the organization. That's why I have them in quotes, because it seems to me like almost all people are stakeholders. There are customers, there are senior leadership, there might be project managers, program managers, scrum masters, delivery managers, whatever, all these other people. But I really like to think about the team, because I want to know that the team is relatively satisfied with what they are doing and how they are working. I find that satisfaction offers a lot of insight into the autonomy, mastery, and purpose that every single person feels or does not feel, and then team collaboration and team relationships, right? So if you read Dan Pink's Drive, you know that autonomy, mastery, and purpose are huge indicators of why we work and how we get satisfaction from our work. And team collaboration and team relationships allow us to actually collaborate and work together. So let me talk about one team that at the end of every day, they do this little satisfaction scale, right? They use yellow stickies on a board. When they were in person, they would slap a sticky where they felt at the end of the day and then leave the building. When they worked remote for the pandemic, they actually had a virtual board and did the same thing. At the end of the day, this was their last piece of work before they left for the end of the day. This team is actually a hybrid team, which is a very different problem. And this is still their satisfaction scale. Most of the time, these people are pretty satisfied, right? These are 4s and 5s if you have a 5-point scale. This is pretty good. And then sometimes there's this, it's fine, right? I'm not really satisfied. I'm not dissatisfied. I'm okay. So, and I'm going to get to the reasons about this in a minute. But team 2 satisfaction is very, very different. They have the same, they do this at the same time of the day. The last thing they do before they're supposed to go home for the day, note that's supposed to. These people are very, very dissatisfied with their work, right? two of them are totally dissatisfied. Two of them are partially dissatisfied. Three of them are meh, and only one of them is partially satisfied. This team is in very, very big trouble. But the reason I ask the qualitative question is because then I can ask for other data. So when I talk about other data and I ask these teams, why are you satisfied? When I asked the map person on this team, that person said, I asked in a team meeting, I said, feel free to do this anonymously, but I need to know, as your project manager, I need to know why you're only mad. And that person said, I'm having trouble working with so-and-so. Okay, collaboration is at risk. I don't see my work actually going into the deployed software. So even if I had a demo, none of my work was there. Now, what I find very, very interesting about this is this person was talking about my work. If you look back at cycle time, and I'm going, don't get lost. Don't worry about it. I'm going to go back to cycle time for a second. There. The more people work separately, the less collaboration they have, and the longer the cycle time. The more people work collaboratively, the fewer delays they have, and the faster they release their work. So if somebody is talking about my work, the team, that's an indication the team might not be collaborating enough. This team, nobody collaborated at all. Everybody was stepping on everybody else's toes. It was a huge challenge for them to get anything done. So their cycle time was very, very long. They stomped on each other in the repository. It was a mess. It was a total disaster. So that's where I found other measures. If you don't want to use qualitative measures and take and understand why, you can also use quantitative measures. So for example, you might use build time and frequency. How long does it take people to build the product? If the build time goes longer and longer and longer and longer, there's a problem because people are not going to want to build as often. How about those smoke tests right after every build? Are those taking longer and longer and longer? That means the longer the build, the longer the smoke test, the less anybody wants to build or smoke test. That means you have a longer delay and you're less likely to actually have the product working as it is. How many defect escapes do you have from when your team delivers product to either the staging server or that training server or release? How many defects does anybody find then after the team says, yeah, we think it's done. Yeah, we think it's good enough for a demo. Those defect escapes really make a lot of people very, very dissatisfied because that's when we have a lot of firefighting, a lot of, oh no, this happened. We need to fix it right away. And the problem with fixes like that, emergency fixes, is that we have now multitasking. We stopped working on this thing. We started working on the emergency. We probably fixed the emergency, but we go back to that first thing. And especially if people are working on several projects at a time, you don't remember anything about what you were doing before. So looking for multitasking and defect escapes really helps. I also like the fault feedback ratio. What is the number of fixes that don't stay fixed? How do we manage those as a team, right? fixes that don't stay fixed means that there is a much bigger problem underneath. So we really need to think about the kinds of problems we have and what we do about them. So those are other measures that might arise from the satisfaction or dissatisfaction that a team has. So if you want to know about autonomy, mastery, and purpose, can the team work by itself? Can the team take in a feature set or some number of features, work on them alone, work on them to their satisfaction using their mastery? And do they know why they're working on that? That's all autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And does the team collaborate as a gel team, making sure that their overall cycle time is as small as it could be? Or does the team have troublesome relationships? All of these are interesting questions when you start asking about satisfaction. So I want you to think about how you would gather predictive and not lagging data. Because if we want to have predictive data where we can evaluate the risk and look at the value of what we're doing, we need that predictive data. Lagging data does not help us manage risk. It does not help us see the value of what we are doing and not doing. So consider cycle time. Really think about your demos and what would you have to do to measure satisfaction. So I want to, if you're looking for, Agile and Lean Program Management has a lot of this data for programs for very large projects.
Johanna, we thank you so much for your time and for presenting with us today.
And thank you all for being here. Thanks, Susan.